This is Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I pray today that this will be like a vitamin or a supplement for your mind and heart. And wherever you receive podcasts, if you would please subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, pass the word along to your friends and neighbors, and leave a rating and a brief written review. It would be very, very helpful. Today I want to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is a personal development plan. It was many, many years ago when I was at a conference and heard John Maxwell speak, and the subject matter was about personal development. This was during the late 1980s, so it was a long time ago, and that was a concept that I was in no way familiar with. And it was life-changing. I went out into where the product was being sold, spent what in those days seemed like a significant amount of money for someone not making very much money, and I bought a program where he, and I believe it was Bob Beal, talked about 30 characteristics of a leader. It was going to be for that year my personal development plan. That's back when we had cassette players in our homes and in our automobiles, and I listened and it was life-changing. And I then began to think about this process of how am I going to develop myself? That's not my employer's job, that's not my parents' job. That's not even the colleges that I attended's responsibility. I have responsibility for developing myself. This topic is a little bit misleading and confusing to some people because it really can encompass anything that would involve change and transformation in your life. It means literally, I want to do whatever I can to be the best me that I can be. I want to reach my God-given potential. Now, becoming a better me does not mean I become better than everyone else. I just am not comparing myself to others. I'm just wanting to be the best me that I can be. And if my life improves and I improve, then my circumstances improve. And this will be done by looking internally, taking a hard look at ourselves, and then making the changes on the outward and externally. So I have 9 things that I want you to consider, and I would strongly urge every one of you to come up with a personal development plan. Coaching folks that I'm beginning to work with, that's going to be one of our goals, is to develop an ongoing personal development program. And the very first thing that I would say about it is you just have to commit to doing it. It has to be significant. It has to be a big thing to you. As you know, nothing in our lives will change and nothing in our lives will happen until we become committed. One committed person will defeat an army of merely interested persons. And just remember, the most difficult thing in a decision is to act. The rest is merely tenacity, said Amelia Earhart. You have to decide to commit. And once you have decided upon a commitment and have committed yourself to it, well, you have really pushed yourself farther down the road than you could have ever dreamed. Because incredible change happens in your life when you decide to take control of what you have the power over instead of trying to control that which you have no control over. And therein is the biggest problem in most people's lives. The things they could control and do control and can control, they throw their hands up and give up. The things that are totally out of their control, they try to control. Have you ever noticed how bummed people are about bad weather? What are you going to do about the weather anyway? So we get all emotional over things we have no control over. So if you're going to be the best you that you can be and have a personal development plan, the first thing is you have to commit to it. The second thing I would say is you have to have some goals. What are you trying to accomplish? Now, it's a little nearsighted if you just develop goals for one area of your life. Many people are tempted to just have goals for their professional life or perhaps their financial life. But you need to have some spiritual goals, some physical and health goals, some emotional goals like growing emotionally. If you're married, you need to have some relationship and marriage and family goals and being a better parent. In your social relationships, do you have any goals there? Obviously financial, and obviously vocationally, and even in avocational, if you will, your hobbies and interests. Now, you just have to sit down and decide what's important to you. But if you're going to have a personal development program, it's not just some form of magic to have a personal development program. What is it that you're wanting to see accomplished in your life? Where would you like to go, and where would you like to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and so forth? But you need to work on goals, and I have plenty of podcast episodes on goals and goal setting. The third thing I would say to you as you're developing a personal development program is start small. Now, you can have big, audacious goals and dreams. There's nothing wrong with that. What defeats most people is you get excited about it, you hear someone, they kind of spark an interest, and so you set these big audacious goals. There's nothing wrong with setting big audacious goals, but you're not going to get them accomplished tomorrow, next week, next month, and if they're really big, not even in the next couple of years. So I'm not saying starting small in relationship to your goals. What I'm saying is start small in the implementation of those goals. To achieve anything large, it takes a step. And the first few steps may indeed seem small. But I want you to picture yourself 20 years from now. And in your 20-year from now self, I believe will be more disappointed by the things you didn't attempt and you didn't do than by the ones you do. So, throw off whatever constraints you have, whatever fears you have, and just make up your mind you're going to do those things. I'm going to recommend some books in a few moments on this podcast, and I have one or two that are very excellent in this area of starting small. It is more important, rather than doing big leaps, it is more important to do small, well-reasoned, consistent actions over time becomes the lever that propels you all out of proportion to the size of the action that you're actually taking today. All big change started as small, consistent actions done over time. So you got to commit, you have to set goals, you have to start small. The fourth thing that I would say to you is you have to work on it consistently. Breaking it down into baby steps, into small actions, small items that are actionable, and then doing them consistently. Do not base that you're going to do it on how you feel on a particular day. Action needs to precede your feelings. Doing something small, is easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. So therefore, this is why the small steps have to be joined with consistency. You have to work on it consistently. 5, find some others to learn from. One of the things that I did in a presentation, a couple of years ago, is I told a group of leaders that I was speaking to that I was going to do something that I had never heard done in all of my life, of going and listening to speakers, and that I was going to tell them the 5 largest mistakes I've ever made and what I learned from them. Because if you go to most conferences or seminars or listen in on webinars, read blogs, and listen to podcasts, You would almost think that the speaker has just gone from one victory to another. No setbacks, just one mountaintop experience after the other. I probably got more positive feedback after that from the leaders, because when you hear people only telling their success stories, you feel like, man, I have really messed up my life. Most people are only giving you the polished version, the glossed over version. Just like on Instagram and Facebook, when you see those pictures, you think that's people's everyday life. They're showing you their highlights. And the greatest lessons I have learned in life, I have learned because of mistakes that I made. And the mistakes don't ruin you. You can learn valuable messages and lessons. And I'm more than happy at this stage of my life to share some of those things with others. If I could save you from having to go through something by learning from my mistake, I feel like I have made a contribution. You can learn from others too, because there are victories in life and there are successes, and you need to learn from others and ask them what went into that. It's good to find somebody you have confidence in, somebody that you really believe in, and just begin to ask them questions. Ask questions like, what would you do if you were facing this particular situation? We get in trouble when we keep ourselves isolated and we don't reach out and learn from others. And a part of any personal development plan has to be this idea of learning from others. There just is a struggle, and it is, if there isn't any struggle in your life, you're not making any progress. Almost all progress I've made in life have come as a result of some of those struggles. The sixth thing you have to commit to if you're going to do a personal development plan is a change is what's going to have to happen. Recognizing you're not where you really would like to be today is the first change that needs to take place. Change is inevitable, and if you're going to develop yourself, you're going to have to embrace it. The seventh thing that I would say in regard to developing a personal development plan is make yourself available for training. We live in a world in which you can go on YouTube and other places and learn how to do anything for free. So avail yourself. Put some 20, 30 minutes into your day in which you will make that your personal development time. You will take the time to get trained on what you need to be trained on. Number 8 is mentoring. Find a mentor. Now, you may say, I can't find one that's been where I want to be and all of that. Well, a secondary way of mentoring is read books, listen to their podcasts, and you can pick up some of that. But I have to tell you, now when I was a young person, I'd never heard the word mentoring, hardly ever mentioned. And yet there are 3 or 4, probably 5 people in my life who were significant mentors in my life. They came into my life at crucial times. And though they never gave me a handout, never gave me a book, by observing them and listening to them and spending time with them, their ideas, their spirit, their insights sort of rubbed off on me. And it became wonderful. And I learned from many of my mentors lots of things, but one of those is that success is not all that big of a deal if you're not adding value to yours and other people's life. The 9th thing that I mentioned, it's the last one, is you really need to develop your own personal development plan. I've given you some kinds of hints here, but one of the things that I would also mention, let me give you here as we're winding down toward the end some books, and we'll come back on this because I think it's really crucial that you have a personal development plan. But let me ask you some classics and see if you have read them, and I believe there's valuable information you could receive. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey is an all-time classic. If you've never read it, I would suggest you do that. One of the first development books I ever read, I was a young teenager. My grandmother recommended this book to me. It's been updated, so you probably want the update because the original has illustrations that aren't as culturally sensitive as they should be. And that is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's one of the all-time classics. I'd highly recommend it. Nearly anything that was written by John Maxwell. John Maxwell came into my life via books and conferences when I was a young person, a young pastor actually, and was really floundering a little bit, and he really helped me immensely. I appreciate the writings of Benjamin Hardy. All of his books you could recommend, but I found Willpower Doesn't Work. If you have not read that, you really need to. I've gotten a copy of a book that he's about to publish that he's asked me to review that I am really going to be excited to recommend here at the appropriate time. Darren Hardy's The Compound Effect, you hear me go back to that, as well as Jeff Olson's Slight Edge. They're back to the ideas of starting small. Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, Jack Canfield of the Chicken Soup for the Soul. If you're really needing some help in the areas of time management, I would recommend David Allen's classic, Getting Things Done. I loved Habit Stacking by S.J. Scott. And perhaps one of the better books I've read in the last year or two is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Sit down today and think about what kind of a personal development plan do you need for your life, for where you are right now. You've been listening to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I hope today this has been like a vitamin or supplement for your mind and heart. Remember, my leadership friend, you are doing better than you think you are. You really, really are. And until next time, this is Dr. Ron saying, have a great and blessed day.